The operations of the Trump Organization are front and center with the news that the Manhattan DA has impaneled a grand jury in its criminal probe. Donald Trump himself has faced numerous investigations over the years, and we have seen, sometimes in dribs and drabs, little extra bits of information into how this highly secretive enterprise works.
Mr. Trump inflated his total assets when it served his purposes, such as trying to be listed amongst the wealthiest people in Forbes, and deflated his assets to reduce his real estate taxes.
This will all come down to who knows what and who can prove it. We're joined now by Jack O'Donnell. He was president of Trump's Plaza Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. He's the author of Trumped, the inside story of the real Donald Trump. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, Ari. Thank you.
Let's do some rapid fire Q&A first, and then we can go into depth. Briefly, have you ever met Alan Weisselberg?
Yes, I have. Met him.
Did you have a sense of
once?
his reputation? Yeah, you met him once. Did you have a sense of his reputation and role within the company when you were doing your work in Atlantic City?
All numbers pass through Alan, regardless of what entity you were associated with.
Did you have a sense that Alan and Alan, on behalf of Donald Trump at that time or at any other later time you're aware of, were cognizant of the idea that regulators or even criminal investigators would later be reviewing what they were doing, the claims they were making about money?
Clearly, in New Jersey, the regulatory process was key, and all numbers were going to be reviewed by the division and the commission in New Jersey, for sure.
And my last quick question, and then we'll get into it. When you heard this news that apparently has shaken up Trump world, that this is not just another review or another audit, but that there is now an impaneled criminal grand jury, were you surprised, or did that seem long overdue?
Not surprised at all. The behavior has been going on for decades, and in my position, I would say about time.
All right. This concludes our opening sequence. Let's get into, let's imagine you're in the jury box and really get into it, sir. As a witness, what did you see about the way they deal with money that either matches or departs from the central allegations here, which we've been reporting on, that include what Cohen said about inflation and documented or repeat tax evasion?
Well, it's all about money with Donald. Everything centers around money with Donald and the organization. And there's two forms of money. There's cash, and then there's what's on a piece of paper, okay? And they don't necessarily have to look the same, or they don't have to total up the same. The numbers can mean something different. That was very clear. And I actually went through, a situation where I was asked to literally build false financials for my business. So I know the numbers don't have to equal each other.
Who requested that?
Very specifically, three people were involved in asking me to redo the numbers. Robert Trump, his brother, Harvey Freeman, who was his attorney at the time, and Donald Trump also. It took place.
So he was in on that kind of direct request. Go ahead.
Well, the direct request came. The process then was every entity in the organization submitted their budgets to New York. And in this case, this was the year that the Taj Mahal was going to open. So there was really a lot of scrutiny, and we all knew the numbers were going to decrease. When I submitted my numbers, I was summoned to New York. And I was first put in a room with Robert and Harvey, and they said, these numbers won't work. We can't go backwards. The numbers have to go up. I said, well, we're having a 20% increase in capacity. Everybody's numbers are going to go down. They said, can't have it. Alan won't accept it. Donald won't accept it. Have to redo the numbers. After that meeting, I then went into Donald's office, and Donald said, did Robert and Harvey talk to you about the numbers? And I said, yes, they did. But let me explain why I can't redo the numbers, because they won't be true. And he just said, we need new numbers.
Have you been contacted by the New York DA or any New York investigators?
I have not. No, I have testified in other cases, but I have not been contacted.
Would you freely cooperate if they were looking to establish a pattern and practice, even though some of this would probably be too old to prosecute?
Yeah, of course I would. I have been speaking up about Donald Trump now since the 90s, and of course I would.
And let's give your chance to respond to the other side, which is the Trump organization says that basically people who've left the company and say these kind of things just didn't work out, couldn't hack it, and that the power, the strength here is this unique Trump brand. Take a look indeed at how they've been making that case publicly. This is a brief collection.
I'm the largest real estate developer in New York. My company's bigger than it ever was. It's stronger than it ever was.
It is a family brand.
On the hotel side, it sells out rooms. My primary job is making sure not to kill the golden goose, which is the brand, and the brand that he's created over such a long period of time.
Jack?
Well, this is a brand in my days with them that borrowed $3 billion worth of money from bondholders, all of which lost their money, and banks. Okay, bankrupted every one of his casinos. Mine, which, by the way, was the most profitable entity he's ever had. We generated $125 million in free cash a year, and his brand killed that business.
We're running over on time, but when you look at someone who claims to be rich, who continues to the cycle of bankruptcy, who now is perhaps fighting for the very life of his corporation with his family name on it, over all these shenanigans, do you think these were the cooking of the books, as you allege? Do you think it was done out of greed, desperation, or something else?
Well, it was clearly desperation, in my days, because otherwise he could not have serviced, or he could not have gotten the loans or the bondholders that he needed to survive. So it was clearly desperation. Today, I think it starts as a game with him where the ego gets in the way with the inflation of his assets, like other guests have commented on. But it's probably a combination. But clearly, he's desperate now, Ari. And in the early 90s, there was a song that said, "I'm stacking paper like Trump." Well, the kind of paper that they're going to be stacking very soon, it's not going to be dollars. It's going to be indictments.
Well put. And Jack, as you may know, Donald Trump is the most cited living person in modern rap songs. First, quite positively, perhaps some even believe that he was a sort of a sign of success, as you just mentioned. People watch TV. They sometimes believe reality shows. And lately in a far, far more negative light. Jack O'Donnell, thank you for your candor and sharing what you know tonight.